As always, a ton of things to get to with Billy Corben. We will have a foghorn here as useless production in order to speed him up and get to these things as quickly as possible, inform you as much as we can. The ballot that he has suggested for you, we will get to because this is an important time in voting. Also a very busy time for Billy because his Hulu documentary is exceptional. God forbid, it's the intersection of politics, power, corruption, a little masturbating in the corner of a cheap hotel in Miami, the usual stuff.
But enough about Joe Carollo.
Find it on Hulu. This is one of the things we don't think Joe Carollo has done deviantly, but we can't say for sure regardless. Before we get to the lightning round, before we get to a guest who will leave you appalled because our local leaders are trying to steal land again, and a historically black beach is finding itself under some duress here in a way that feels hugely unfair. A guest, Patrick Range, on an ousted board will join us at the end of Because Miami. Before we get to that and the lightning round, though, before we get to your ballot, because buildings, plural, have fallen in South Florida, because you have told us a number of times that our infrastructure is broken and the mechanics of building buildings in Miami is deeply flawed, get to the story in Hialeah right now that is hard to believe. It's unbelievable, even in an area where you get used to things being unbelievable.
Yeah, Miami-Dade County, home of third world government and fourth world infrastructure. And I always say, who needs sea level rise when we are going to basically sink into the sea under the weight of our own incompetence and corruption? Miami-Dade County is home to 3 of the deadliest structural collapses in the United States in the last 10 years. One county is responsible, is the location for all of those things. Not a coincidence. There are obviously environmental factors, of course, but what plays the biggest role in it, of course, is the incompetence and the corruption. Hialeah is kind of a notorious place among the 34 municipalities of Dade County. It's known as Ciudad del Progreso. City of Progress.
Ciudad del Progreso.
La Ciudad del Progreso. City of Progress. The locals know it as Agua, Mierda y Factoria.
That's right. That is, I don't think it's water, shit, and factories. I don't believe that that's the way the saying goes.
I'm pretty sure that's what the locals call it.
I think it's mud.
Fango. Okay.
Not mierda.
Agua, fango y factoria. But I think it depends on who you ask, Dan.
Your Spanish is remarkably bad for someone who's lived here all his life.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm a product of the Miami-Dade County public school system. I'm a functioning illiterate.
At least he can speak it, because I got nothing.
Un poquito ito, I would say.
Muy poquito.
Muy poquito. But, so Hialeah is home. Actually, in the last week, a building in the city of Miami Beach and a building in the city of Hialeah have been evacuated due to life safety issues. In the city of Hialeah this week, a 15-unit building has left residents homeless after a second-floor walkway collapsed into the ground. Fortunately, no one was home. Everybody was off at work during the day. But it turns out that at their last safety inspection, which was in 2018, an engineer signed off on the recertification of the building and called it safe. Claudio Joffrey, it turns out, died in 2017. About 9 months or so before he signed off on the safety of this building in Hialeah.
That's not the worst of it.
So thanks to the exceptional reporting of Heather Walker at NBC Miami, we have now learned that Claudio Joffrey, the dead engineer who said that this building in Hialeah was safe, this 60-year-old building, he said it was safe after he died, of course. He has signed off on safety recertifications in buildings all over Miami-Dade County. So far, we know City of Hialeah, City of Miami, and North Bay Village in Miami Beach.
And more recently than 2018, correct?
Oh, yeah. He's been very active, Dan. Claudio Joffrey is a very busy engineer, very highly in demand. Since his death in 2017, all the way through at least now 2021. So at least until last year, he has been signing off on the safety.
No, it's unbelievable.
It's terrible, and people are going to die because of this at some point. Again, people are going to die again, and there's a moment where, because Miami just gets a little overwhelming when you have a dead engineer signing off on the safety of these buildings, and everybody just is kind of like, this is business as usual. I'm at a loss on this one.
Well, you've said since Surfside, because certainly that got the nation's attention, but you have said this is the start of this. This is not going to be the last one. Like, it can't be the way the confluence of events are happening with climate calamity and dead engineering calamity.
And just last week, the 12-story oceanfront condo in Miami Beach, the Port Royale, the address is 6969 Collins. Nice. This is less than 10 blocks away from the Champlain Tower South. And it had been red tagged for structural deficiencies since the collapse in Surfside. Again, less than 10 blocks away from this particular building, because this is an oceanfront building again, probably with a lot of the similar environmental challenges that Champlain and all of the other buildings along Miami Beach had. It is a 50-year-old building up for its 50-year recertification. And they discovered that a reinforced concrete beam in the lower level of the building shifted a half an inch in 1 week, which apparently in structural terms is tectonic. I mean, that means it's moving like as we speak. They evacuated the whole building, 164 units on 2 hours' notice. They're trying to shore it up now, and they're not certain that it will work. But in the meantime, you have hundreds of displaced people living in hotels and not knowing what the hell is going to happen to their homes. They had to leave, obviously, most of their belongings behind on 2 hours' notice. And this is just what's happening. I mean, like, we're just in a world where buildings are going to start falling down. That's just going to be a thing. Now, the difference here in this particular building in Miami Beach, usually we get right into the real estate hustle part of this, and we say, well, there must be some unscrupulous developers or people who are looking to intentionally blight this place so they can level it intentionally and then rebuild, move all of the retirees and everybody living in a 50-year-old building out so that they can, build luxury condos and sell it to, people who probably did not invest in Miami coin. And so apparently that's not the case here. This is a condo owned by the owners who want to, live out their years in this place, but may not. The government may tell them it's a no-go.
You are perpetually saying that Miami is sort of 20 years ahead of the rest of the country in terms of corruption and the things that happen here that many people nationally are noticing and jarred by, because they're saying again and again when they hear "because Miami," what the bleep is going on in Miami? You are telling us, and I don't think you're fear-mongering here, that the reporting on how flimsy our structural safety stuff is, you're telling us that it's going to become something that we had better get used to. The idea that buildings are just going to collapse around here.
Yeah, but if I were you, I'd start worrying about the drag queens, Dan.
Let's move on to the lightning round here of things that we have to get to, including your ballot, because I do want people to be properly informed when they head during an important time to the ballot box. Let's start with the Miami Beach real estate referendum, because so much of what we talk about here is, so much of the corruption is something that is cloaked in real estate fraud.
Oh, are we on the clock now? Are we doing lightning round? Oh,
we're doing lightning round.
All right.
We're speeding you up because the first 10 minutes of this show have not been fast enough. We need to speed you up. So you have 1 minute beginning now.
last year, we played a secret recording of a meeting with Miami Beach Mayor Magoo, Dan Gelber, the city manager, Alina Hudak, on the line with real estate developers, moneyed people, mostly from out of state, but one of whom was from in-state. It is the former mayor of Miami Beach and Jeffrey Epstein's BFF, Phil Levine. This is a guy who was a straight-up real estate hustler here in Miami Beach, who was a terrible mayor and now is an even worse ex-mayor, and they are making a play for the surface lots around Lincoln Road. By the way, surface lots are a terrible waste of property. So the idea of redeveloping them is not a bad idea, but what they want to do in one fell swoop with Miami Beach Referendum 4, 5, and 6 is to basically give them away to private developers, including Mayor Phil Levine. So the way they tried to dismiss our red flags last year about that recording that we played on this show, we were right. The bottom line, we were right to be concerned about it, because now they want to take away this property. They want to do this public-private partnership, and I say vote no, no, no on Miami Beach Referendum 4, 5, and 6. It is a giveaway of public property to moneyed interests that do not give a shit about this city.
They've also ruined Lincoln Road. It is already ruined.
So there are, by the way, the other side of this is that the only way to save Lincoln Road is to do this, is to build these office buildings that still have parking, but that have this retail component that will create jobs and bring people here to work in offices that then will be able to populate and shop in Lincoln Road. I think that's total bullshit, by the way, because that's just going to raise the rent and make it cost prohibitive for any decent businesses and any decent restaurants. I mean, our office has been on Lincoln, in and around Lincoln Road for a lot of years, and every business that, for the most part, that we would frequent as locals, as business owners, as tenants of Lincoln Road is gone. There's nothing for locals anymore, and I don't think there ever will be. I don't think that that's the move. Again, no discussion of affordable housing, no discussion of flood mitigation.
You mentioned that, and it's a good point by Roy.
Did I get a second minute?
Let's move on to the next subject. Subject, not surprisingly, I read in the newspaper, in the Miami Herald, that Mayor Suarez had promised a lot of money with a big cardboard check, and then $0 emerged from the cardboard check.
Before we run the clock on this, I want to ask you a question, Dan, about this, because I have dubbed Francis Suarez Mayor Pansi Postalita, and I don't know that a lot of people listening know what a postalita is, but I wanted you to explain it, because I feel like this story exemplifies what I mean when I say that.
I want you to explain it. I want you to try to explain. It's your nickname. The Ponzi is self-evident. It translates in either language.
He's a con man. Yeah. It's Italian, but it's understandable.
And the postalita means that he gives you a giant cardboard check, and then there's $0 that it actually merits.
Right? That's what it means. So postalita is basically Cuban slang, Miami slang for a faker, a poser, someone who pretends to be one thing like a postcard, but is actually not that thing. A bullshit artist, a con man, Pansi Postalita. And so...
Now, the mayor of Miami called us here, said that he was awarding the Circle of Brotherhood some funding because of the work that we've been doing in the community. When we got here, he unveiled a check for $1 million. It was all on his social media. It was all in the newspaper. In fact, even to this day, people still think we got this money. They think we got the money. Now we get an email from the budget office saying it's $250,000. You know, one time a commissioner called me ungrateful because I had the audacity to ask for a little more money. I was ungrateful because I wanted a little more money to serve my community. I was ungrateful. So maybe you might call me ungrateful again today. The mayor promised us $1 million. We want $1 million. We're not taking $250,000. So if $250,000 is on the agenda for us to take it, we don't want it. We are not going to take less than what we are worth anymore in the black community. We're not taking $200,000. The budget department sent me an email saying it's not $1 million anymore. It's $250,000. We don't want the $250,000. We're not trading anything for $250,000. We're not trading who we are. The brotherhood, you know what? We ain't bowing down.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are not Thank you.
Thank you.
Circle of Brotherhood is an outstanding organization in Miami that helps to take care of not an underserved community, but an unserved community in Miami, the black community. They get a lot of funding from a variety of sources to do their outstanding work in Miami's black community. And Francis Suarez held a big press conference last year in City Hall with a giant cardboard check for $1 million and presented it to the good folks at Circle of Brotherhood. And we just discovered at a recent city commission meeting when Leroy Jones, one of the lead organizers for this group, said, we actually got $0. Last year, he gives us this fake check for $1 million. We got $0. And the next thing we know, we're in the budget for maybe $250,000. And he said, you can keep that money. And it turns out that not only is Francis Suarez, Mayor Ponzi Postalita, behind this, but their own commissioner in District 5, Christine King, the chairwoman, she, because this organization supported her political rival in the last election, this is actually political revenge against the organization. That's what a backwards, crooked banana republic we're living in.
Later in the show, we will tell you more of the things that Christine King is doing when we have on Patrick Range to tell us about what's happening with Virginia Key Beach. We've been talking about this park for a while. The land is just going to outright get stolen by the leaders of this city with the help of black people, a crime against black people. But before we get to that, let's get to the city of Miami's referendum on the James L. Knight Center at the Hyatt Hotel in downtown Miami. It is a historic venue. I remember watching University of Miami, original University of Miami basketball games, because that was Rick Barry. But when the program was reincarnated with Bill Foster and Tito Horford, their basketball games were at the James L. Knight Center. What can you tell us about the city of Miami's referendum on the James L. Knight Center space?
This is another 99-year no-bid lease, a sweetheart deal for the people at Hyatt, who one could argue that through the years have been reasonably good stewards of that property. They want to redevelop it. They want to spend some money for a change on affordable housing. They're not going to build affordable housing, but they're going to donate some money to the city, some millions of dollars, in order for the city to build affordable housing somewhere, which rest assured they never, ever will. But here's the problem. In addition to being a sweetheart 99-year no-bid lease, Hyatt has inexplicably hired as their lobbyist Humberto Hernandez, one of the most disgraceful figures in the history of Miami politics, which is quite an achievement. He was twice removed from office as a city commissioner amid accusations of federal bank fraud, mortgage fraud, and absentee ballot fraud in a time in which the 1997 mayoral election, in which Xavier Suarez, the current mayor Francis Suarez's father, was elected by absentee ballot fraud, including Manny Yip and his friends at the cemetery, as Carl Hyacin used to call them, a bunch of dead people who are now engineers, by the way, signing off on safety recertification in this county. But Humberto Hernandez is a notorious criminal, spent 4 years in prison for crying out loud. And now he's back at work, and he is the bag man for City Commissioner Alex Diaz-Laportilla. If you want to grease DLP, you go through Humberto Hernandez. Humberto Hernandez did his time. He never flipped on anybody, so now they put him right back to work in this network of corrupt city officials and commissioners.
Thank you. He needs the reminders. I also think that you need to make the H silent when pronouncing Humberto. I'm pretty sure.
Bert Hernandez. Incidentally, Bert Hernandez was also present at the lunch in which DLP was struck in the back with a flick of a wrist from CJ Jimenez. This was a story we covered last year as well. It is just Miami, the grift that keeps on grifting. Man.
I am going to need you to respect the sound from Inception. You are talking well past the sound, so we're gonna be more
Horn of Doom.
We are going to be more diligent about this now. Can you explain to people within a minute, quickly, please, the expanding of the urban development boundary? Why should people in our audience care about that?
The reason why there is a UDB, the urban development boundary, is to say, like, this is how far development will go, because we have an Everglades. We need an Everglades. We need water to flow. We need fresh water. We need to preserve the extraordinary wildlife in one of the most unique environments on the planet Earth. And so we've talked about this in the past. This was the occasion where Leonard Abess, one of the largest landowners, a multi-generational Miamian, who stands to make over $100 million on this deal to turn farmland into warehouses, shops, and a hotel. But he called it a fraud, a con. And he said there is no profit if you lose your soul.
I was born in Miami 74 years ago. My family came here 105 years ago. For a better life, we got one, and we try to give back to our community. And when my family came here 105 years ago, they bought their food from the same farming families that are farming today. And we are not in alignment with this development one bit, and we consider it, I consider it, my family considers it, one of the biggest frauds on this community, the big lie in our community, and a con game. If you vote to approve this and it is upheld, my family will have a windfall of over $100 million. There is no profit if you lose your soul. And I will not lose my soul. I will not turn my back on this community. You asked if people have been paid. Not only have I not been paid, but I will forego any profit I can make on this and do what I can to try to convince you not to do this, okay? This is about money. Understand something. The only beneficiaries of this are sitting behind me wanting to kill me right now. These are the only people who will benefit from this. When Steve Green tells you that this study is bunk, it is bunk. I made a living as a banker. I wouldn't allow any of this stuff on a loan application. They are paid for. They are paid for. It is not true. And if you want, I'll come back and tell you that we don't irrigate on this land very much. We don't pollute, and it's in the best interest of our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again.
Not all heroes wear capes, but Leonard Abess is a native, a legend, and a hero. This developer group got to come back to the commission 5 times because corrupt commissioners like Commissioner DUI, Chairman Jose Pepe Diaz, and finally, Raquel Regalado sold her soul, and they finally, this week, got the vote that they wanted. They kept getting delays. They kept getting, oh, you know what? We'll delay this till next time. We'll delay this till another month, and on the 5th try, if at first you don't succeed, you try again. But I'm going to take this time. I'm going to reclaiming my time, sir. Everybody was against this. Locally, state, federal. Marco Rubio was against this. The DeSantis administration's environmental committee was against this. The county's experts in environmental, the county experts on the environment were against this. The commissioner from the district, Danielle Cohen-Higgins, was against this. And she said these developers, after a year of this, never even bothered to come in the community and have a single meeting with the stakeholders, with the citizens to see what their thoughts were about this. They just managed to somehow overcome more opposition in the history of this county on any single development. They were able to overcome that. And if that's what that means, this is a dangerous and slippery slope that is not going to lead to affordable housing or anything that we need as a community, but is going to lead to the destruction of our natural resources. Okay. And if you think that we can live here without water, okay, water is life. Water is life because of transportation. You don't
need to explain why water is important. I need you to respect the goddamn horn. If we've disrespected the horn in a way that has you telling us long after the horn,
I want to talk about water, Dan.
We know water's important.
Watch Chinatown.
I know water's important.
Watch Rango.
Freedom is on the ballot as a lot of people are headed toward the midterm polls. Give us a minute on freedom on the ballot.
When you talk about the free state of Florida and you talk about freedom, I don't think that it means what people think that it means. If you want women to have bodily autonomy, if you want government that respects referendums, like restoring voting rights for convicted felons who now are being deliberately disenfranchised after an overwhelming percentage of Florida voters voted to restore their rights. If you want places like Key West, which had a referendum to no longer have cruise ships screwing up their community, their city, their town, their environment, their waters, and then the state government just said, screw you, we're going to overturn your referendum and the will of the people. If you want people who are going to respect immigrants, if you want people who are going to respect humanity, in a state of immigrants, where we have welcomed people from all over the world and not put them on planes at taxpayer expense to Martha's Vineyard, then I think there's only...
You just refuse to be confined. You're just beginning your points and you're out of time. You will not respect the guardrails. We're going to have to make this fence electrical.
I will tell you, there is no better way to represent where we are audio-wise than the Zimmer Horn of Doom. I will tell you that. That's it. That's the state.
Do you want to finish your thoughts?
That is the state of Florida. It doesn't matter what I say. People are going to vote against their best interests. They're going to vote against their own Social Security. They're going to vote to deport themselves. They're going to vote against their own bodily autonomy. They're going to vote again.
Let's get to finally here, before we get to Patrick Range here, because this is all very upsetting. But inform the people who want to make a difference.
Both of them.
What do they need to do? You have recommendations on your ballot. You have suggestions. People can find them where you can give them, I doubt it, in a minute. You can give them some of your thoughts. But where can they get more fully informed on everything they need to know before heading to the ballot?
I'll go to Billy Corben, at Billy Corben on Instagram and Twitter. That's Corben. I'm not the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, although a lot of people have a lot to say to him, and they say it to me. Usually they'll tag me in it, especially when it comes to, apparently he had a career in wrestling, not as a wrestler, but like as a promoter or an owner or something very, very weird. I hear a lot about that. I got a lot of shit for how I was treating Daisy. I don't know who the hell Daisy is.
Not on point. You've got less time left than you had on your ballot, which is the more important thing than you telling us about how people confuse you with the lead singer of a band from 20 years ago.
I think people need to look at the constitutional amendments in the state of Florida, and they need to vote no on all three of them. I think if people are looking in Miami-Dade County at the county referendums, the charter amendments, I think they need to be no on one, yes on two, yes on the school board referendum. We need to spend more money on our public school systems. Go to Billy Corben on Instagram and Twitter, and you can read my ballot. I've been a Democrat now for about 4 years, and I will say that it absolutely sucks. And I was always an independent, a no party affiliate voter, and I voted for as many Republicans as I have Democrats. The truth of the matter is the only thing worse than a two-party system is a one-party system, and that is what we are left with. If you are interested in freedom, if you are interested in your Social Security, in your Medicare and your Medicaid, all these very popular policies here. But when you look at, for example, Brazilian voters in Miami who voted 81% for Bolsonaro, when you look at stats like that, and you can see we're not exactly the freedom-loving people that we claim to be. It's an extraordinarily distressing and disappointing fact about us, is that we yell about freedom and then we say the opposition are sheep and they should shut the fuck up and fall in line behind the strong man. What the hell kind of freedom is that?
It is strange, and it keeps happening, and it does feel like good is losing. Patrick Range is the former chairman of the Virginia Key Beach Park Trust Board. They've been ousted. We talked to him about the hows and whys of that next. We do a decent job around here, I feel, and I'm not proud of many of the things that we do around here, but we have covered the holy hell out of the appalling things happening in Miami, and they never seem to end. It's a relentless stream of unending sewage, and today, and I don't mean this by way of introduction of Patrick Range, because I'm not describing you, Patrick, but the situation that you find yourself in. You're the former treasurer of the Virginia Key Beach Park Trust Board, and you're among the people who were ousted, and we've been talking about this story. A historically black beach, a source of pride for the black community, is under assault because people want the land. It's valuable real estate. Beachfront property is hard to come by in Miami. You basically cannot buy land on water in Miami that's affordable right now.
Patrick was the former chairman. In fact, I think you were also the treasurer as well, but he was the chairman up until how many weeks ago?
About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago, when the city commission decided to oust the majority black trust, the board of the trust, and install themselves, the commissioners, as the board, which in any other city would be a wanton act of terror. I would say economic terror, racial terror. I mean, the disrespect has been overwhelming. Just a few weeks on the program, I said that Francis Suarez doesn't care about black people. I think I should say more generally, the city of Miami does not care about black people. And am I being hyperbolic, Patrick?
I think, you're spot on. I would certainly say that the city does not seem to care about black people. I would not put the onus so much on the mayor. I would say the city, and certainly by their actions they have demonstrated, their concern for black people is not at the forefront of their agenda.
Can you tell the audience, for the uninformed, and we have been talking about this, what happened to you and what is happening here?
What generally has happened, Dan, and again, thank you all so much for this opportunity to just share this travesty. What has happened is the community's voice has been taken away, just taken out of the conversation. The whole purpose of the establishment of the Virginia Key Beach Park Trust was to give the community a voice, a say over in stewardship over this land. And the commission, having removed the trustees and now sitting themselves as the trust, has effectively removed the community's voice from this project.
Now, many of these commissions and committees and trusts and boards that kind of stand between community projects or parks or organizations and the government, the city commission itself, oftentimes they're completely disregarded by the commission. And that is, technically the commission's prerogative, but at least there was this body made of the people of Miami, and particularly the communities that are most dramatically affected. In the case of Virginia Key Beach, you have, as you mentioned, we had Uncle Luke on to talk about it. This was the historic Black Beach. This is it's a treasure for not only the community, but for marine life. there's protected marine life in this area. It is a park. It is a historic site. And most recently, we saw Camp Carollo. Remember, Commissioner Carollo wanted to create a homeless encampment on this island as part of this land grab. That was very unpopular, so we tabled that for a minute. And now what they've done here is the first thing they've done is the commissioner, specifically Commissioner Alex Diaz-Laportilla, accused this board with absolutely no evidence and with a report pending of some kind of financial malfeasance. Now, this is a man very familiar with financial malfeasance, by the way, Alex Diaz-Laportilla. And then a report came out essentially absolving the board of any malfeasance, but then ignoring that, they went ahead and made this power grab anyway. So, Patrick, can you first tell us about these accusations that you have referred to as slanderous and what the grab is? Is this money? Is this land, a real estate scheme? What's happening?
Yeah. So yes, you're absolutely right. We were accused of malfeasance. It was even said that we had our hands in the cookie jar. And so, I'm an attorney by trade. I also run my family business, which is funeral homes. And to have someone say that, about me, about the trust, with no foundation, no evidence, especially by a commissioner, just goes above, it makes no sense. It's ridiculous, that we would have to be subject to such accusations. And this came through by way of an audit. As you mentioned, there was an audit that was conducted on the trust over the period of about 3 to 4 years. This audit was not even finalized, but yet the commission used it as a tool to say that because of these financial improprieties, that we should no longer be on the trust. We should no longer serve as the stewards of this land. And so maybe unbeknownst to them, we had already received a copy of the audit and had read it cover to cover and knew that no such malfeasance was included in the audit. Eventually, the audit was finalized and we were able to talk about it because these commissioners weren't even supposed to talk about this audit before it was finalized. And so anyhow, once it was finalized, we put it into the record as evidence that, there had been no financial malfeasance, no hands in the cookie jar. So yeah, obviously they were using that as a tool to take control of this land, which is sacred, not just to the Black community, but to the community as a whole, because it has the historical piece, it has the environmental piece. We are home to several endangered species, including loggerhead sea turtles, the American crocodile, and others. And so this was absolutely a power grab. And I don't know that it was a land grab or a money grab or both. But certainly there was a move to get us out of the way. So clearly they thought we were in the way of something.
Can you explain to the audience, just to make this a little more personal, what it means to you to be on this board, why you're on this board?
Was correct. First of all, the entire board were volunteers, citizens of this city who thought it important to dedicate some time and some energy and some effort into ensuring that this park, this beach would be a part of our community for generations to come. And so, it just says that also for me personally, and let me just say also, there's no money involved. As volunteers, obviously, we are not paid. There's no financial benefit of any sort that accrues to any of the trust members that were sitting. Also, this was my grandmother, who's passed away in 2006. This was her last labor of love. Her name was M. Atherley Range, and she was the first Black city commissioner here in the city of Miami. And so obviously very proud to be her grandson and to be able to continue the legacy that she started here in this town and to continue her efforts to save this park and beach and have it be around and include a museum dedicated to Black history. And so for her to pass away in the midst of those efforts, I did not want to see those efforts go by the wayside. And so I thought it important to take her place. And fortunately, I was able to do so and continue to serve to carry out her legacy in saving this important piece of Black history in Miami.
Patrick, talking about the museum, the trust was very proactive in putting together the financing necessary from a variety of sources. And this is where, when we say money grab, where the money comes into play. Talk to me about those efforts. What were you, as the board, able to do, and what is the status of that money now? Yes.
So before I actually was on the trust, while my grandmother was still serving in the very early days of the trust, there were community meetings held, a public charrette held to basically discuss and have the community provide input into what the best land use would be for this area, for this park. What elements would be included, what improvements would be done. And so along with this process, this public process, there was a push to ask the community, to ask the county through its general obligation bond for monies for construction for the museum. And in fact, eventually the citizens, the community did vote to have an allocation of some $15.5 million given to the trust for the purpose of constructing this museum. And so that's what we have. We actually have also received a significant amount of other dollars. So total, we have about $20 million through different county funds available for the construction of this museum. And so that's what we're talking about. That's what's at play here.
And that money is now controlled by whom?
That money is now controlled solely by the City of Miami City Commission with no input from the community.
Right, the City Commission who removed you and the rest of the majority Black board from the historic Black Beach Park from the museum that you guys effectively raised $20 million to build and install themselves
I'm surprised.
in charge of
I'm
this.
surprised your rhetoric is not spicier. You're restrained. You're an attorney, but I'm surprised. It sounds like they just stole your land and your money and your power.
Yeah, they hijacked it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And I my feelings are a lot spicier than my words, Dan. And maybe that is because I'm an attorney, but we're extremely hurt. The community is extremely hurt by this action, and we just feel that there's something untoward going on here. Given what you all know of the history of Miami, I'm sure you're not surprised by it either.
No, but you're awfully restrained, and I'd like people to know what your indignance is, because we can't become numb to this just listening to it. And this is so personal for you, to volunteer time, and I'm sure your time is precious, to care about something and have it taken by people who don't regard it as sacred. It's deeply offensive. And I'd like to hear your indignance, no matter how measured you are as an attorney, so that people understand, this is really deeply appalling. I understand that corruption is normal in Miami, but do you have any recourse here?
Well, again, I appreciate you all for this opportunity, this platform. We are out as the trust, but we are making our voices heard that we are not happy, that the community should not be happy, because again, what's happened is the community's voice has been removed here. And these commissioners are elected by the citizens, and I think that there has been for some time a feeling by elected officials that once they are elected, hey, done deal, we're here and we're going to be here and we're going to do what we want to do. And that's not what this is. The citizens elect officials to be responsive to the community's wants and desires and needs. And so that's what we expect of our elected officials. And that's not what we're getting here. And there should be vast outrage about this. The precedent that the city commission is setting by just removing citizens from a board and leaving no voice is absurd. And I'm sure if this happened in other cities, folks would be turning tables over and burning buildings and all sorts of stuff. And maybe that's what we ought to be doing here. I'm not trying to incite a riot, but to take the community's voice away. I mean, why do you think you are there, elected official? And so it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm incensed. It makes, it's, I hate to say that that's Miami, but that's Miami.
Because Miami is the name of the show.
Because Miami.
Yeah. So let me ask, District 5 Commissioner Christine King, who I've criticized repeatedly on this show as a puppet of the Hardiman crime family. She was the anointed successor. She won the seat overwhelmingly. In my personal opinion, she's been a disaster and a sellout to the district and to the community. Where does she stand on all this?
She is lockstep with as a matter of fact, she was the initiator of the resolution that brought about this whole removal of the trust.
Oh, really?
So she's in line with it. And she is the commissioner for the Black community. And she goes right along with this, kicks us out. There's no, well, can I help you? What can I do to assist this process? I see maybe you guys are struggling here. How can I be helpful?
Why? Why? What were her motivations, though?
To me, it just says with how quickly it happened, and no discussion, by the way. When this got to the commission, we had about 50 persons or so speaking in opposition to the change to the trust. 3 persons spoke in favor of the resolution. Those persons were Billy Hardiman, Keon Hardiman, and a young lady that works for the MLK Economic Development Code, the Martin Luther King Economic Development Code, which is what the outfit that Christine King and the Hardimans have come out of.
So at least it was one person that didn't have the last name Hardiman that supported it, but she was on the payroll of the Hardimans because the Hardimans have directed the money to that organization to fund Christine King's existence, if I'm not mistaken, for years.
So for those three persons to be the only persons to speak in favor, and then it comes to the commission and there's no discussion by Christine King. She got 50 constituents out. Actually, there were constituents from all districts that were there in opposition to this, but not one word was said by her or any other commissioner to address the concerns of the people that were there. They asked a technical question or two of the city attorney, and then Commissioner Carollo called for a vote.
Patrick, is this over? I don't think you answered the question of what recourse you have. Like, beyond being having your voice heard, how does this result get changed?
It gets changed through community action. Only thing we can do is now scream at the top of our lungs that this is wrong. This should never have happened. And city, you will be held responsible. Commissioners, you will be held responsible, for your actions. So we're calling on the citizens to make phone calls to the commissioner's office, to the mayor's office. We are planning to, my understanding is that the city manager has offered us a discussion item on the next city commission agenda, which is going to be on November the 17th. Not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday. And so we are asking folks to come out and to let their voice be heard and to say that the community deserves to have a voice. And commission, no, you can't take this community's voice away. Reinstate the trust, work with the trust to get the goals accomplished of building this museum, which, by the way, would be the first museum, believe it or not. We don't have one dedicated to the Black history experience here, the Black immigrant experience.
Patrick, I've been saying for decades that the Black community in Miami is not an underserved community. It is an unserved community. And I think 2022, regrettably, has been an exemplary year to prove my thesis. There's been a series of episodes, crimes, I would say, perpetuated on this community by the city commission, not vetoed by the mayor, who had an opportunity to do the right thing. Mayor Ponzi Postalita, who we have a story this week that absolutely exemplifies the nickname that he has been branded with. Can we just quickly sort of go through them and get your take on them? We have the corrupt carving up of the West Grove, the oldest neighborhood in Miami, disenfranchising the Black voting bloc in that neighborhood, historic neighborhood once again. We have the Virginia Key Beach, even before they hijacked and stole the land and the money from the trust. Camp Carollo and his scheme to start a homeless encampment there. We have most recently now the Circle of Brotherhood, an organization that gets funded by the federal government, the state government, the local government, does a lot of extraordinary work in the Black community in Miami. They were presented last year with $1 million check. You know, one of those big cardboard ceremonial checks you can't take into a Chase Bank and endorse the back of, but by the mayor. And they have received $0, Dan, to date.
Yeah, I read that story
so
this week.
we'll be talking about that this week, or we have time. Patrick, what do you make of just the last year in the city of Miami and its relationship with the Black community, along with, of course, the fact we are the least affordable housing market in the entire country?
I mean, it's a sad commentary. It's a really sad commentary, on where we are, as a community, and where do we go from here? What makes, first of all, anyone, want to stay here? I mean, you mentioned the affordable housing issue. It's hard enough just to be able to afford to live here, first off. But then when it seems that you have your own elected officials working against you, what makes you feel a sense of community or a sense of pride in being here? I mean, what encourages you to want to stay? If all you see is this corruption, and then you look and you go in your pocket and all you pull out is lint because all your whole paycheck went to your mortgage payment. So we've got a ton of issues here. Certainly as the Black community, our leadership has been lacking, to say the least. And leadership in other communities too hadn't been all that great. But,
well, it's not lacking in this case. The leadership is there. It just got taken out. Like Yes, you were betrayed by black people, it sounds like, but also there's plenty of betrayal to go around.
Absolutely. And then to be insulted and told that you're stealing and not taking care of what the public has entrusted you with, just takes the cake.
Patrick, I feel like this is the point of this, right? It's to sort of crush everyone's spirit and to get everyone come around to the idea that this is absolutely helpless and hopeless, and we should kind of cede this ground to the corrupt clowns and cronies that run this town. So can you answer your own question? Why stay with the condition of this town and its leadership? The only transparency appears to be the corruption at this point, because now they're acting with impunity. They do not care anymore for the perception of the community, the way people are going to feel. Like you said, they get elected by, in some cases, 2,000, maybe 3,000 people, some of these commissioners, but then they are kings and queens, and they can run the whole city into the ground, and there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. So can you answer your own question? Why are you still here? Why are you still fighting?
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful, Billy. I'm really hopeful that this community can change things around. This community is, if I know nothing else about Miami, this community is resilient. We have been through our fair share of whatever you can think of, whether it be natural disasters, economic disasters, political disasters, and we maintain our image. We maintain who we are as individuals, as a collective group of immigrants, largely who live here. But being a native myself, this is my home. This is where I live. This is what I love. I'm not a fan of cold weather as well, so that helps. But this is all I know and I love. Why should I leave here? I'll fight. My grandmother stood at 5'2" in heels and fought for her town. She fought for things like regular garbage pickup in black neighborhoods. She fought for cold drinking water fountains in schools. So I'm quite sure to not have had those things in the black community had to be disheartening, and probably had her and others feeling like, is this really somewhere I want to raise my family? But they stayed here and they fought and they made change. And so it's possible. And I believe that wholeheartedly, no matter how far down I think we are. I think the citizens can turn this around, but we have to be active through folks listening to great shows and platforms like this. They have to not only hear the information, but they have to act on it. And so that's what we're calling people to do, and that's what will make change in this town. Nothing less.
As a call to action, and you gave us ways to do it, do you have a telephone number for our listeners to bombard right now? If you don't have the number itself, I will ask Roy to find it. But if you have some place that they can call, now would be the time to give us that telephone number so we can tell the audience something they can do right now if they're properly motivated by hearing how awful this is.
Absolutely. You can call the chair of the city commission, Commissioner Christine King. Her phone number is 305-250-5390. Again, 305-250-5390. You can also call our mayor, City of Miami Mayor, Francis Suarez. His phone number, 305-250-5300. Again, 305-250-5300. And again, you can certainly show up with us November 17th, Thursday at Miami City Hall, 3500 Pan American Drive. We'll be gathering for the meeting and speaking. The meeting begins at 9. We'll begin gathering and going into the chambers about 8:30.
And if people are to call Mayor Francis Suarez and Chairwoman Christine King, what should we say?
We are not going to let you silence the community's voice. Reinstate the trust, because our voice will be heard. We'll continue to speak to you and make sure you hear us, whether we're in the trust or not. So you may as well put us back.
Patrick, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Dan. It's really been a pleasure. Like I said, big fan of the show. You guys keep doing your thing and making the community aware of what's going on here.
Hopefully we can get some people behind you on this. Thank you, sir. Billy, say goodbye to the good people. A great and a big week for you. The Hulu documentary is available now. God forbid it is a seismic success. Tell the people goodbye, Billy.
Good night and good cuck.